I used to think trust was something you earned once, and that was it. You built it, stacked it brick by brick, and when the world shook, you leaned on it, expecting it to hold. 10 years into my marriage with Claire, that trust felt like muscle memory. Dinners at 7, grocery runs on Sundays, the same 3 shows on rotation. We had inside jokes that felt like warm sweaters. We had a rhythm, and then came Ethan and Mia, our closest couple friends. Every weekend, it was the 4 of us. Game nights, beach days, group texts that never stopped buzzing. They felt like extensions of us, not outsiders. Ethan was the effortless kind. Witty. Disarming. He had that grin that made people feel safe, even when they probably shouldn't. Claire laughed more when he was around. A full laugh. The kind I hadn't earned from her in years. At first, I didn't think much of it. People click. That's all it was, right? But then I noticed how she looked at him when she thought no one was watching. Eyes a beat too long, smiles tucked into silence. I told myself I was imagining it. I loved her. She loved me, right? But one night I walked in on them in the kitchen. They weren't touching, just talking. But the kind of talking that stops when the door creaks open. Claire jumped a little. Ethan smiled too quickly. And my gut, the part of me that always knew when something was off, tightened like a fist. After that, I started noticing everything. The way Claire's phone never left her hand. The work meetings? That didn't match her calendar. Ethan dropping by more often, always with some excuse, always when Mia wasn't around. Still, I said nothing, because if I named it, I'd have to face it. Instead, I did what cowards do. I observed. I tracked smiles. I timed text replies. I pieced together what they thought they were keeping hidden. The confirmation was quiet, just one message. A leftover thread on Claire's phone. Oh, usual spot, Thursday. Nothing dramatic, but it hit like a car crash in slow motion. I didn't confront her, not because I was afraid, but because I knew it wouldn't fix a thing. Screaming doesn't rewind time. I needed stillness. I needed to grieve the version of us that used to be real. And then there was Mia, Ethan's wife, the most emotionally composed person I'd ever met. She hosted like she meant it, listened like it was sacred, but lately, she looked worn. Like she was living just a little behind her eyes. She asked me one night after dinner when the others had stepped outside, "Are you okay?" And I lied. I said, "Yeah." But she didn't believe me. She didn't push. Just looked at me the way people look when they've been pretending to. There was no romance in it. No desire. Just recognition later. We started texting. Small things, memes, song lyrics, jokes about nothing. But in between the nothing was everything. Then came her message. "Do you ever feel like we're the only ones still trying?" And I wrote back, "Every day." That was it. That was the door. Neither of us pushed it open, but we both leaned on the frame, breathing the same tired air. We didn't plan the coffee. It just happened. They were busy, and we weren't. And when she touched my hand across the table, it felt like someone finally saw me again. Not the version of me who played along, but me. The one who was bleeding quietly behind the jokes. Later that night, we crossed a line we both swore we never would. But it wasn't reckless. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't even sex. It was presence. 2 ghosts remembering what it felt like to be flesh again. We didn't talk about it after. No promises. No fantasies. Just silence. But the kind that says, "You weren't alone." And honestly, that was more healing than any apology Claire could ever offer. She never found out, or maybe she did and just didn't care. Funny, isn't it? The ones who betray always assume their pain matters more. But Mia and I, we never needed to be more than that one moment, because not every connection is meant to last. Some are just meant to catch you before you break completely. I stayed with Claire, not out of love, but inertia. History is heavy like that. We went back to schedules, conversations that skimmed the surface. She kissed my cheek again. Called me baby, like it was a placeholder. I let her, because I'd stopped needing her to mean it. I never told her about Mia, because it wasn't hers to hold, it was mine. A quiet, necessary rebellion, not an affair. An awakening. You'd think crossing a line would change everything, that it would ignite guilt or cause some dramatic collapse. But the truth, most things die quietly. And the things that save you, they come even quieter. Mia and I never talked about that night. No text. No follow-up. We went back to normal, or at least the version of normal we'd both learned to fake. Group dinners. Wine glasses clinking. Laughter that didn't quite touch the eyes. Ethan was back to his usual self. All charm and easy lines. Claire was suddenly warmer, like she was trying to overcompensate. She'd bring me coffee in bed again. Text midday. Thinking of you. And I wanted to believe it. God, I did. But once you've seen behind the curtain, the performance loses its shine. I kept playing the part. So did Mia. But every now and then, I'd catch her looking at me from across the table, eyes holding a storm I recognized. And in those moments, we weren't actors anymore. We were witnesses. It wasn't that we needed each other. It was that we saw each other. And when you've been invisible long enough, being seen feels like oxygen. We didn't talk about the future. We didn't try to define what happened. We both knew what it was. A brief rebellion against being forgotten. One night, maybe 2 weeks later, Ethan invited everyone over for a barbecue. Same backyard. Same lights strung overhead. Same playlist echoing through the night air. And I watched him laugh with Claire. Watched her lean in too close. And for the first time, I didn't feel jealous. I felt free. Because I finally knew who they were. Not the masks they wore, but the quiet calculation behind every smile. Mia stood next to me by the grill, holding a glass of red wine, and whispered. I almost told him today. I didn't respond right away. Not because I didn't care, but because I knew the weight of that sentence. Finally, I said. Did it feel like it would fix anything? She shook her head. No, just felt like I needed to say it out loud once. When I got that, I really did. We didn't owe each other anything. There were no promises, no late-night calls, no burning declarations of love. Just that strange peace you feel with someone who knows the same ache. After that, we drifted. Naturally. Not with resentment, but with clarity. She needed to find herself outside of what Ethan did. I needed to learn how to exist without defining myself through Claire's neglect. One day, the group stopped meeting as often. Someone canceled. Then another. The texts slowed down. The laughter faded into memory. Claire and I were still together, but only in name. We slept in the same bed, but it felt more like a layover than a destination. She never asked if something happened. Never really looked at me long enough to see it. Maybe she didn't want to know. Maybe she already did. And I stopped trying, stopped reaching. Stopped hoping she'd return as the version I married. Because that man, the one who waited, trusted, believed, he wasn't here anymore. He left quietly, somewhere between a Thursday message and a look exchanged across a kitchen. No one tells you that surviving a betrayal doesn't come with applause. No clean-cut ending. No cinematic confrontation. Just you, wide awake at 3 a.m., staring at a ceiling that's seen too much, wondering when exactly you stopped recognizing your own life. Claire still kissed me goodbye every morning. Still called from the car to ask if I needed anything. Still used words like "Huss" and "babe," like she hadn't already handed those pieces of me to someone else. And me. I still responded, still showed up, still played the part of husband. Because leaving wasn't about walking out the door. It was about letting go of a decade of hoping she'd look back. I don't know when I stopped hoping. Maybe it was that last group dinner where Ethan toasted lifelong friendships with the kind of smile only a man who's never been caught can pull off. Maybe it was the way Claire laughed at his joke, like it was written just for her. Maybe it was Mia not showing up that night. Yeah, that was the moment. Her silence that night was louder than anything anyone else said. And for once, I didn't blame her for disappearing. We'd already said everything we needed to say without saying anything at all. After that, I changed small things. Stopped checking Claire's location history. Stopped cooking dinner for 2. Started sleeping with the window open even though she hated the breeze. Started listening to music again without turning the volume down for her, she noticed. She asked, "Once are we okay?" And I said, "We're functioning." She nodded. Didn't ask again, because functioning was good enough when the alternative meant acknowledging the truth. People think infidelity is about sex. It's not. It's about absence. It's about the moment someone stops choosing you in 100 small ways until your name becomes background noise. And for a long time, I blamed her. I blamed Ethan. I blamed everything. Until one day, I just stopped. Not because I forgave them, because carrying that weight felt more exhausting than just setting it down. I started going for walks again. Not the power kind, Just the breathe and feel something. Kind. Passed a bookstore one evening and walked in without meaning to. I saw a novel Mia once recommended, bought it. Never read it. But I kept it on the shelf. A quiet souvenir from someone who knew what silence sounded like when it hurt. Months passed. Claire and I still shared the same space, but not the same life. We became good at being polite, at pretending our vows were still a living thing. But deep down, we both knew. We were just giving grief its proper time to decay. One morning, she looked at me across the table. Coffee, silence. The usual, she said. You haven't asked me anything. Not once. And I just said, because I already know enough. And that was it. No blow up, no crying. Just the quiet acknowledgement that we'd already had all our conversations with her people. Mia reached out once. Months later, just a text, G. Hope you're okay. And I replied, I am. Are you? She didn't respond. She didn't have to. It wasn't about rekindling. It was just a final heartbeat. A soft nod to a chapter that made us both human. Leave Claire? Not right away. But I did start living without waiting. Booked a solo trip. Went back to therapy. Started writing again. Stopped trying to make things go back to before. Because sometimes survival isn't about running. Sometimes it's just about standing still and letting the dust settle so you can see where you actually are. No one teaches you how to heal from betrayal without hating someone. But I figured it out. And it started with this: you don't need justice to move on. You just need the truth and the courage to carry it quietly. They say betrayal is just a word until it becomes your second language. But some wounds, they don't just scar the heart. They echo, they haunt, they bind. I didn't know it then. But something had taken root the night Claire first lied. Something ancient, something unseen. It wasn't grief. It was a curse. Not the fairy tale kind. This one didn't turn you into a monster. It made you stay with one. It's called the ultimate. Passed in silence, in the space between the betrayal and the moment you pretend you're okay. It infects the air in a room where trust has died, but bodies still lie beside each other at night. And once it chooses you, it doesn't scream. It whispers. It makes you forget what you were before the hurt. It lets your name be spoken by someone who doesn't love you. It makes it sound normal. Weeks passed. Then months. I was still there. With Claire. In that house that used to feel like us, but now just echoed with what we didn't say. But something was pulling at me. Like a thread in the back of my mind I couldn't reach. The ultimate doesn't want you to move on. It wants you frozen. It feeds on the loop. On memories you replay until they rot. But that's the thing. I didn't know it had chosen me. Not until she came back. Mia, it was a Tuesday afternoon. Uneventful as in the sky. Emails I wasn't reading, she knocked soft. Twice. I opened the door and there she was. Hair tucked back, eyes tired but steady. Like someone who had lived through something and was done running from it. We didn't speak right away. The air between us already held the words. I needed to see you. She finally said. I nodded, let her in. We sat on the couch. No pretense. No smiles. Just that quiet hum between two people who never got to finish the sentence. And then she said, found something. She pulled it from her coat. A journal. Old. Faded. I think it's been following us. You, me. Them. The reason it never feels over? She opened it. Pages filled with sketches. Symbols. Stories passed through generations. About a thing that binds two people who betray together but infects the ones they leave behind. Ultimate. It feeds off unfinished love. Off words we never say. It clouds memory, erases clarity, keeps you tied to people who longer choose you, until you no longer choose yourself. Suddenly everything made sense. Why I couldn't leave. Why she disappeared. Why we both stayed silent. It wasn't just pain. It was something else. Something ancient that fed on our grief. And just like that, I realized what had to happen. I want one night, I told her. One real night. Not for revenge, not to be seen. But to remember who I was before they made me forget. She looked at me like she already knew. She nodded. We didn't kiss right away. We just sat closer until the space between us disappeared. When she touched my face, it wasn't lust. It was resurrection, a reclaiming. When we kissed, it was soft, slow, like untying a knot that had been there for years. No one rushed. No one pretended. No lies. No shadows. Just skin and soul and silence that finally felt clean. We made love that night. Not fast. Not wild, but aware. We held each other like people who weren't trying to fix anything. Just to feel something that didn't break when touched. She cried a little. So did I. But not for what we lost. For what we found in each other. Just for that one honest night. Afterward, we didn't speak for a long time. We laid there, her head on my chest, fingers tracing my ribs like she was writing something only I would ever read. And then she whispered, I think that broke it. And it had the ultimate, whatever spell it was, let go of me. Of her, I felt it. The clarity, the freedom, we knew we wouldn't be together. That wasn't the point. She had her path, I had mine. But for the first time, we weren't bleeding quietly. We weren't carrying ghosts that weren't ours to hold. She left before sunrise. No long goodbye, just a look at the door, a nod. A memory I'll carry, not mourn. Claire never knew. And it doesn't matter, because I didn't cheat. I healed. And for once, I chose myself.